I like this view better. See that? I'm gonna turn it sideways. Is that cool with you? Or should I go straight? I don't know. What do you think? What do you think looks best for the students to have their maximum absorption of the teachings? That's beauteous? Okay. That's better. Test. You got your mic in? Test, test, test. Good? Yeah. Test? Okay. All right, greetings. I want to give a little bit of a descriptor explanation of a Trika Mahasiddha Yoga retreat that we offer annually, sometimes twice a year, called Mind of Shiva. So it's part of the way of meditation. So if you're really into meditation and you want to go to a very high level and understand the techniques and the view, the whole theory behind meditation practice in the Mahasiddha tradition, then when you go online to search for the events that you want to go to for Trika Mahasiddha Yoga, you'll look for way of meditation. There are 5 ways of practice in the system. Way of meditation is one of them, focusing on meditation. Of course, this is also to understand that each one of the ways supports each other as well. So it's not simply, I just do way of meditation, I just do way of fire, just yoga. They support each other. But if you really want to go down that deep track of meditation, then you go with way of meditation. So in this retreat, we go through an explanation of the 12-stage view as relates to meditation. What is the proper orientation to the practice, to the path at each stage, related from the view of meditation? Which techniques are relevant at these? Which ones do you drop away? Which ones do you revisit continually? And that's important to keep your foundation, to keep checking where you're at, so you don't slip backwards and so on in meditation. And we go through the 2 good categories or great categories of meditation. One is Nirapeksha Dhyanam, which is meditation or contemplation on your nature itself and the various ways that that can manifest and signs and symptoms and so forth of getting it right or wrong. And we also go through Sapeksha Dhyanam, which is the way of meditation using a conceptual support of some type, external or internal or both. And that's usually what we'll use in the beginning to gain some skill and understanding about our mind. So a lot of the training is geared towards you discovering your mind, clearly discovering your mind, understanding what it is, that it's just a series of processes and functions, and learning how to let them resolve back into the base mind, which is underneath everything, which is not something, right? Which is the basis of non-conceptual meditation. But it's useless to go into non-conceptual meditation if we haven't already first discovered what conceptual is, and at a very high level, actually. Something that we will discuss a lot during the Mind of Shiva retreat is the concept that's very important in the view teachings of the Mahasiddhas, that there are many non-dual states of consciousness. It's very popular today in spiritual work for people to teach a methodology to drop you into non-duality. But that experience of non-duality can have still the ever slight residual halo, aroma, or flavor of duality, and therefore it's not quite your natural state. It's a state of non-duality instead of your nature. You can see this in Patanjali's yoga with his very high levels of samadhi. They're very high levels of samadhi. They feel very non-dual in a certain sense. Everything else is wiped out. There's only awareness, whatever, but you're still separate from your own essence in a deep way. This happens in many types of traditions like this, where the teachings of the Mahasiddhas don't flourish, where they don't have an understanding of the subtlety of the non-dual state. We see many practitioners get stuck here. Indeed, we see many teachers get stuck here as well, thinking, oh, I've realized my nature, this is it. And actually, it's just a non-dual state. So we go into a bit of knowledge about that, so to prevent people from getting caught in that kind of a situation. And this is so that when you leave the Mind of Shiva retreat, you can guide your practice yourself. This is very important. You get techniques from the beginner and intermediate levels. And we might even try something from the advanced. It depends who shows up. It's a very organic training in that sense. But definitely the beginner and intermediate levels are experienced, at least a few techniques from them, so you can go home and work with them based on where you're at. But having said all of that, the preliminary practices and the foundation practice of Trika Mahasiddha Yoga are pretty important in that if you have that as your context to start the way of meditation, if you've gone through those online courses first and given the time that they need in the contemplations, when you arrive for the Mind of Shiva retreat, you'll have a much wider framework or matrix to experience the teachings and the practices within. And that will give greater results, greater fruit, without a doubt. Okay. So the preliminaries and foundations, in summation, basically establish within the person the proper view of the path, the work, what is your nature, in a very basic level, but gives view teachings on what is your nature. It's sort of an introduction to your nature, and helps you understand and relax into and generate pure motive. Pure motive is crucial. Intention is crucial for the outcome of any undertaking, right? For the correct outcome. So the preliminaries and foundations are very good for this. So we're also going to, in the Mind of Shiva, do something which is very important in meditation training, which you don't see often outside of tantric yoga meditation, right? So we're in the path of tantric yoga, the Mahasiddhas. And I mean that terminology not in the Tibetan sense where there's the Theravada view, then there's a tantric view, and then there's the Dzogchen view, and they only call tantra the deity sadhanas that are transformational. When I use the word tantra, tantric yoga, I'm using it from the original understanding in India, where it's the full spectrum, from the beginning practices all the way through to rainbow body. So in that sense, one of the most important contributions that tantra made to meditation, tantric yoga made to meditation, and tantra and classical tantra, just doing puja, was to discover that if we learn how to enter into the natural state through physical motion and pleasure, so through Kundalini Hatha Yoga, through sexualized meditation, we can enter into the natural state this way as well. If we learn how to enter into the natural state through speaking, through our energetic emotional state arising, we can enter natural state this way. If we learn how to enter natural state through the mind, chatter, even discursive thought, right? But also direct thinking on essence itself, as in Sattarka, then we have three doorways. We have three entry points into our natural state. And this is a very important thing because the tradition of meditation before tantric yoga meditation came in was very much about sit down and disappear. Whether it's Vedanta, whether it's Samkhya Yoga, the original Samkhya Yoga, Patanjali's yoga, even Hinayana Buddhism was sit down and disappear. And that only leads to a certain level of realization, and it leaves you in a non-dual state usually, which is even worse. In Shaivism, they used to call it the Chidanu. You would become a Chidanu, which in Sanskrit means like a spiritual nomad, cut off from everything. It's kind of like Nirvikalpa Samadhi of Patanjali. And that's because you didn't integrate the natural state with the three doors of human life. So if you want to go farther in meditation and you don't want to get stuck, both. Because if you get stuck, you also get deluded. You go into the God realm or animal realm, you pull into your little world, or you think you're all enlightened and then you start teaching and start a school. And you see many, many teachers do this. I'll go halfway through the Zen. People will go halfway through a Zen curriculum, leave Japan. Oh, I'm a teacher, But unfortunately, halfway up the mountain means didn't get up the mountain at all, and dangerous. So it's important to be able to integrate these three doors, these three entry points with our meditation experience, with our life. And this is what we call integration meditation. And I've been talking about this for over 25 years. Integration meditation is extremely important, maybe 30 years actually, really important. Without integration meditation, we're not going to make any headway. So we give a lot of attention to integration meditation during the retreat as well. In fact, we do direct practices for body, speech, and mind as a meditation, okay? In the body practice, I mentioned sexualized meditation. Just want to make clear that that is not taught in Mind of Shiva. We may give reference to it, how you can position yourself in a certain bhava when you're with your wife or your husband during those intimate moments. But the techniques are not taught, and certainly nothing's done live or anything like that. So don't get the wrong idea. It's not a neo-tantra kind of workshop. Okay. Also, during the course, we're going to talk about the obstacles on the way of meditation. There are many obstacles, like there are on each path. And if we don't understand them, we can have some serious problems. And I discussed some already, like getting caught in non-dual states, thinking that you're all the way through when you're not. That would be not having 12-stage view teachings, not having a teacher you can check in with to see where you're at, and so on. So we're going to discuss obstacles that can occur physically, mentally, emotionally, energetically, spiritually. It's very important to understand these obstacles. We get often quite enamored with the obstacles, with the symptoms of an obstacle, and the symptoms become what we think is the fruit of the practice. This is very dangerous, and it happens quite a bit when there's not enough understanding of the view, not enough ability to clearly self-reflect, and so on, all the things that we develop along the path of meditation. All right. So in the way that I mentioned in the beginning, that way of meditation can feed the other 4 ways of practice, especially if you're thinking of going down way of mirror consorts. If you're preparing for meeting a consort, to have that relationship in your life, if you're already with your consort and you're going to go through life together as practitioners into the beauty of the rainbow light, then way of meditation is essential, actually. It's required for way of mirror consorts, because this is one of the 2 requirements: a monogamous relationship and a long-standing daily meditation practice. Without them, there's really no chance to make it through way of mirror consorts, because it's the way that promises the highest level of attainment with integration, but it's also the most challenging, I would say. So we really have to have the way of meditation for that. Now, what's the format of the training? There'll be multiple short sessions of practice during each day. Maybe the last few days we may do some longer sessions, but it's not like a Vipassana retreat where you're going for a marathon sitting session all day long to like get your badge of courage that now you can sit all day, because that's really a waste of time. You can do that at home much better, especially considering Vipassana, because when you ask them about your experiences, they say, oh, it doesn't matter, just keep sitting. Then why am I here? I always think that, what the hell am I doing here? Because it was free? No. So I think it's a really important thing that we do short meditation sessions, get feedback, because I'm going to be pointing you towards certain experiences through these short meditation sessions. And then we want to get the feedback from you on what you experience, so we can start to fine tune your way inside these subtle experiences. We're talking about a very subtle path. And you need reference points. You need guideposts. It's like, imagine if you're coming from, your whole life, you lived in Vladivostok, Soviet Union, Russia. And all of a sudden you're popped into Iowa without a map and a car. And you tell the person, get to Los Angeles. Can't speak English, doesn't know where they are. They're in Iowa. They're never going to get to Los Angeles. It'll take them 50 years to drive around and finally find it. Even if they drive through the city, they may not even know they're in that city, right? This is how important it is to do short sessions so you can learn your mind, learn your inner experiences, start to develop an understanding and appreciation for what the real signs of attainment are in each one, in each stage, in each technique, and so on. Okay? So short multiple sessions, and then we'll do some long ones as we get into more of the non-conceptual at the end of the retreat for those who want to try that path, that part of the path. It'll be kind of a relaxed pace. We have to keep the inner winds as low as possible. So to that end, we're going to do 2 things. We're going to do a special form of yoga called retreat yoga. We'll do that in before the sitting sessions, and you can learn about retreat yoga. It's not a retreat yoga training, though. So we'll do practices from it. You can write them down and go through it, but it will not be a comprehensive training in retreat yoga. But we'll use it before we go into the practices, and you're certainly welcome to remember those and use those before you start your practice at home. Just realize it's not a certification course in retreat yoga. Okay, but the retreat yoga will be combined with the short sessions to keep it fresh and keep it relaxed, and keep reminding ourselves to relax our body and relax our energy, to take the inner wind activity down, get it to sit still so the channels can come to rest, so the mind can flow smoothly, and so on. It'll be very non-strenuous. Like I said, the Vipassana thing is just Yeah, it's just not tantric yoga. Why would you want to try to sit for a marathon of 8 or 12 hours unless you had a real reason for doing it, where something comes out of that long-term fruit? Somebody might say, oh, that's a great thing to do, though. I broke through, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Once you break through the idea that you're lazy or that you're afraid of your pain of sitting, you don't really have to revisit that every day the rest of your life. You get the breakthrough, you move on. So in that way, it's going to be non-strenuous, as it's urged in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, to not be strenuous in the practice, to never hurt the body in a practice. And in tantric yoga meditation, we never really want to oppose the mind, as in like fight with it really hard for hours in a contemplation practice. So none of that will go on. It's not the flavor of our tradition at all. When we talk about confrontation with the mind, beautiful hummingbird, we talk about confrontation with the mind. We're talking about you seeing the mind clearly, nakedly, and seeing its essence. Because of that, you know what its essence is. And this is a different thing. There'll be a teaching session or two during the day, not really long, just enough to understand what's going on for the practices that day and a bit of the view, a reminder of 12 stages. We're going to go through 12 stages, like we said, and a reminder of the fruit and how it relates each stage to meditation and so on. There'll be a daily question and answer session, maybe two, actually. And it's not, I want to say, it's not a silent retreat. It's not going to be austere with great vows of silence and, like I said, hours and hours of sitting in a row. It's not going to be loose and relaxed as far as just do whatever you want. We're only going to meet for an hour or two a day. No, it's going to be a full day, but it's going to be a very relaxed, beautiful pace that hopefully has the bhava of what we're looking for in our meditation practice, in the way it's presented, in the way you're experiencing during the retreat itself. Okay. And it's also a level 1 instructor certification for a way of meditation. So people who want to teach meditation and want to go down that way of becoming an instructor, or say an acharya, where a way of meditation will be an important thing for them to teach, then know that completing this training and understanding what you're doing by the end of it will certify you for a level 1 instructor certification, and you'll receive that paper and be entered into that database, okay? Because it's much needed today, meditation, and we'd like to see more people able to teach it, even at a basic level, yeah? So that's my basic description of the Mind of Shiva retreat. I could go on and on about it forever. We've been teaching this retreat for about 20 years, and people like it. So get a lot out of it. Doesn't matter if they like it, but they get a lot out of it. This is for Mind of Shiva?
The first question, yeah.
Okay. So a question came in. You spoke about practitioners being more drawn to energy or mind practices, but I always thought building an energy body was a must. You're going to build an energy body no matter what you do in the 5 ways. The 5 ways of practice always have an effect on the energy body, are always working with the energy body. Now, it's a matter of whether you're working with it directly or indirectly. So when you go in the way of water and you're doing devotional pujas and so forth, and puja as a body entry point, movement body entry point into your essential nature, that's one way of working with your body and your energy. But of course, your mind is there too, right? But in a way of water, you're also doing Kriya Yoga, and that's working with the subtle energy of the channels and so on. Okay, it's a big part of it too. So when you're working with your channels in way of water, then your mind also relaxes. So a meditative bhava also occurs. But the view is a little different of the path. You're not having a deep, detailed descriptions of the meditation fruit, the meditation step by step. You're going through the way of water, which is pujas and Kriya Yoga. So when we say, so how can I explain the energy part of meditation in perspective? So when you're taking the way of meditation, your energy body will go through the necessary maturations and developments so that you will achieve the possibility of stage 12 that we can have through any of the 5 ways. Stage 12 is, if you're not familiar with that, the highest experience that a human being can experience of their full potential, right? Maximizing and expressing our full potential is stage 12, a rainbow body. And all the 5 ways have the potential to take you there if you have that capacity. So when you go way of meditation, then if that's going to give you stage 10 Mahasiddha development, or stage 11, immortal master development, or stage 12, rainbow body, it's obvious that your energy body will have to be transforming slowly through each stages of the meditation. So even though we're not directly looking at the energy body, because we're working with the mind and the nature of the mind, the energy body naturally goes through this transformation. Whereas something like Kundalini Hatha Yoga, the way of fire, we're looking directly at it. We're directly engaging with the fire of awakening, directly with the Kundalini in its Sva, Kula, Loka manifestations, the 3 levels of Kundalini. And in that case, now we're like, our focus is clearly, completely on the energy body. In the way of water, it was also like in Kriya Yoga, a little bit like half of that path. In the way of fire, it's all that path. Even when we go back into the meditational stages of the higher levels of way of fire, level 4, level 5, you're coming at it from the perspective of an energy perspective into the entry point of the mind, fusing the two in a way, you could say, very clearly fusing the red and white bindus. So this is how meditation and the energy body work together. Okay?
2 questions.
How do I make them scroll? I can't scroll it. I don't need to? Oliver? Greetings. How can non-duality be taught except through experiences? How can a concept lead one to non-concept? What did you say first? How can non-duality be taught except through experiences? Non-duality can be taught about. And it can't be taught through experiences, as in your teacher's going to give you an experience of non-duality. That's, I think, one of the biggest myths and misnomers of the spiritual world, especially today, with so much emphasis on this thing called Shaktipata, or introducing one to their nature. We're thinking that the teacher's state of non-conceptuality, forget about non-duality. Non-duality is easy to get. Pure non-conceptual nature. There's an idea today that a teacher can give that to you. That since we all share the same non-dual based nature, that I can take my nature and kind of inject it into your mind stream, or your energy body, or your physical body, or your life, or whatever, through Shaktipata, through grace, through introduction to your true nature, like in Tibetan Buddhism, Dzogchen and Bun. And it can't happen. It just doesn't happen. You have to discover your own nature, right? So first, let's dispel, and maybe I'm getting your question wrong, but I want to make sure to flesh this out as well, that we get this right for everybody, because it's making me think of it. Your own nature can be taught about. Now, accurate and correct knowledge of your nature is extremely important, extremely important. And it's what I see missing a lot today, especially in the traditions coming out of India these days, or the teachers who are teaching India stuff, Kashmir stuff, whatever. Because if we don't have a really clear understanding and description of what our nature is and what our nature isn't, recognizing it's going to be impossible. And this is people say, oh no, but the experience, it tells you exactly what it is. It doesn't. And here's how you know. If you've been practicing and meditating for long enough, and you're not a complete God realm crazy person who thinks they're like the greatest Buddha, I get letters all the time. I'm the next Buddha. Good for you. So if you're a grounded person and you're meditating and you're practicing, you're going to have lots of spiritual experiences. And if you're going higher in those spiritual experiences, you're going to have a lot of non-dual experiences. But you know that the truth is you need to know what your nature is and what it isn't, because with hindsight, you look back and you go, oh, 5 years ago when I had that big experience during my retreat, and then I practiced on it for 3 years or whatever, I thought I was really at the end of the road. I thought I'd reached complete non-duality, complete, my nature, and there's nothing more to do except abide in this. But now it's 5 years down the track, and I look back and I go, that was a little premature. It was kind of amazing for its time. And you look back what you wrote in your diary and you're like, yeah, that wasn't really it. And that happens numerous times along the path. If a person is truly introspective, if a person truly is humble and has the right motivation and wants to keep going down the path of realization. So we know from our own experience that we need a very good understanding, detailed, clear, intellectual apprehension of what our nature is, what we're going for at each stage as well, and what is just a non-dual state or lesser yet. a dualistic state of mind, right? So that's extremely important. Okay. So that's how non-duality, or I want to go beyond non-duality, your nature is taught. It is taught. Now, then the meditational practices are ways to experience and sort that out. So a lot of meditation, a lot of the meditation path, a lot of the way of meditation is to give you progressive, successive experiences to recognize what the mind isn't, to relax it and let it go, which helps you deepen your stability, which then leads to the subtle work of actually engaging directly with your essence via your own essential mind, your own essence. Your own nature realizes it's your nature through your nature, as it says, I'm paraphrasing from the Mahabharata. It's very true. So, last part of your question, how can a concept lead one to non-conceptual? That's how. Proper view teaching is extremely important in this, because what if you're fantastically inspired? You just have this amazing opening, but you have no view teachings. You don't really know how to place it. You don't really know. Look at the example of the Buddha. Here's a good example. He went through Veda, he went through Vedanta, he went through Samkhya, he went through some kind of sexual practices, if we get that right. He went through all kinds of different practices. He went through terrible austerities, we know, right? He was starving. He looked at himself in the river and said, oh my God, I look terrible, you know? And he went through all of that. Then he said, I'm going to sit down because none of that is it. I still am not sitting in the experience of perfect equanimity. I'm still grasping. I'm still upset about not getting there, whatever. Now, if you look at that trajectory, it's very interesting, because what he was doing was learning about his mind, attachments, energy, life, integration training, etc., through these other systems, which didn't bring him far enough. He was grateful for all these teachers, but they didn't take him far enough. He didn't get to his nature. And then he sat and he got to his nature. But that is a way to say that's how a concept brought him to his nature, how many concepts brought you to nature. So in way of meditation, we go through as many concepts as we can cover in that period of time to help a person understand their true nature and how they're trying to get it progressively or directly, those two paths in the way of meditation, those two approaches, okay? All right. Is a Mahasiddha the same as a Bodhisattva? Okay, so in Buddhism, there are many layers and levels of realization, and they have different names like Arhat, Bodhisattva, what are the other ones? Arya. There's all these different levels. And in our tradition, it's not so important. We're a very pith kind of tradition. Those levels take care of themselves if you stay to the path. So when we say Mahasiddha, we don't just say Siddha. Siddha is a person with great attainment, with attainment, and really good attainment. That's wonderful. But Mahasiddha for us is a being who, out of the 12 stages, has entered into an irreversible condition of stage 10. Excuse me. Is not a person who can transmit a stage 10 experience of walking on water or sitting underwater for a day, flying or something like that, but doesn't live in that state. Okay, just for external examples. A Mahasiddha is a stage 10 being who has fundamentally rectified their own experience of their nature and the projected experience of their body, mind, and energy into this matrix. So they're sitting behind space and time. They're a being who sits behind space and time and who can control the experience of their expression. So they're a Buddha. They're definitely a fully liberated being. They were from stage 7, but now they're very deeply into that realization and expression to the point where the Jivatma Shakti, Nirmanakaya Buddha is manifesting. They're fully in their whole Trikaya. All three bodies are there, fully showing up and able to teach beings in different dimensions, different universes, as well as appearing there as your teacher down the block, whatever. That's a Mahasiddha. And they're talked about in, even Hatha Yoga Pradipika gives a list of the Mahasiddhas in the beginning that contributed to that tradition of yoga and so on. They're famous in the Buddhist and Shaivist and the Bon tradition. In the Buddhist Tantra and the Shaiva Tantra, they share many of the same Mahasiddhas. By the time it gets to the Tibetan Buddhist Mahasiddha lists, they still have Matsyendranatha, and that's Machandanatha for us, and Gorakshanatha are still in there. In fact, I was just looking at a Tibetan text the other day where there's a quote from a Tibetan text where there's listing out Goraksha and all his disciples and so on. And same thing from another text talking about Machanda or Matsyendra. These are Tibetan Buddhist texts, but they clearly state that these two Mahasiddhas are not Buddhist, that they're Shaivists. And actually, they're the head of the whole Nata lineages and really the head of what made the Mahasiddha tradition in Tibet. It's quite interesting. So there's really a place beyond sectarianism that's very important to understand with the original Mahasiddha tradition. Nowadays, people like to claim everybody, oh, he's from our system, so our system's the best. I have my little badge, and I'm great because I belong to this group. I belong to this teacher. That's all silliness, right? So the way of Mahasiddha Yoga and the way of meditation within it is pith understanding of what are we as human beings? How do we work with the human mind? There isn't a Buddhist mind. There's not a Shaivist mind. There's not a Christian mind. There's only one mind. There's only one nature of mind. And you have your own. That's it. Nobody else has your nature of mind. So we work Mahasiddha way with the essential aspect of that, and we leave behind all the religious stuff that we don't need, and sectarianism, bravado, and identification, which is clearly listed in Tantric Yoga as one of the biggest problems, obstacles to our growth and our realization. It's called clanism, right? And it's something that's very bad in Tantric Yoga. I think another one just came in. Can you please point out a couple of common factors between 84 Mahasiddhas? What is the importance of steady wisdom? Okay. I'm going to ask you to write back in a half hour with that question. That's a question more, not for a way of meditation description of this retreat, but for Yogi to Yogi, which is happening in a half hour from now. Okay, I think we're out. Great. Nice to see you all. Hope to see you at retreat. We can meditate together. That group energy is quite beautiful and helps us realize our nature even better. All the best. Sarva Mangalam.